Hello and welcome to Season 3 of the ReFolkUs podcast, where we talk to artists and music industry workers about building sustainable, creative careers with a focus on folk. I'm your host, Rosalind Dennett. Hello and welcome to ReFolkUs. Our guest today is Begonia. Pegged as Canada's breakout alt-diva, Begonia has built a legion of fans online and at her legendary live shows. Her critically acclaimed discography includes Lady in Mind EP, Fear, and Powder Blue. Among her accolades, she has 2 JUNO nominations, 2 Polaris Prize nominations, multiple #1 songs on CBC Radio, and was named one of NPR's Artists You Need to Know. Her sophomore album, Powder Blue, emerged in early 2023 and confronts themes of sexuality, self-discovery, acceptance, and empowerment. The album was named one of CBC Music's Best Canadian Albums of 2023 and was shortlisted for the 2023 Polaris Music Prize. Begonia's live performance is world-class. She's been playing sold-out clubs and theaters in North America and recently supported indie all-star Leith Ross on their European tour. Her vocal prowess has the power to absolutely floor an audience, evidenced in her Polaris Gala performance, which I saw and was amazing, made me cry the whole time. Riding a wave of momentum with a record number of people discovering Powder Blue, Begonia's EP Open Swim was recently released via Birthday Cake Records. Co-written and produced by Dirks and Paquin, along with contributions from her freakish collaborators and producer duo Deadmen. The EP is a project that encompasses the feeling of working through conflict and the elation that can surface when you're honest with others and ultimately yourself. Welcome, Begonia.
Thank you. It's so interesting just sitting, listening to your bio being read out. I'm like, whoa.
Wow. You did all that. I was glad that it highlighted that Polaris performance because truly I was like weeping watching it. It was so good.
Thank you.
So good. I feel like, some of the conversation I want to touch on today is just like the way that you emote on stage and, kind of build this connection with your audiences. I know that you have just a great lineup of festivals and touring coming up. And as we mentioned, you recently got off the road as well in Europe. What has the kind of evolution been like in your stage show, in the last few years? And has it been intentional? Have you noticed it? Have you always kind of felt that connection with your audiences?
I definitely always felt that connection for sure in one way or another in whatever bar setting, festival setting, like from when we were just schnurps running around Winnipeg, and you're just cutting your teeth playing in bars. And I always felt that like importance of like connecting with people, staring people in the face. I think probably because I started playing in the church, as much as I'm not connected to that life at all anymore. I think that was something that was instilled in me really early on, like audience connection. Like that's such a thing when you're like leading worship music or like leading music in church, is like what they kind of instill in you is you are a vessel for this message or whatever. And I really truly believed that for a long time. And now I still believe that, but in a different way. I don't necessarily believe that like God is shining through me. It's more of a different kind of way of thinking about it. But I think because that's how I was kind of trained more or less to be on stage, I feel like that kind of importance of like looking people in the eyes, trying to make a connection was always there from the beginning. So then when I started not playing in churches anymore, that was still a part of the way that I performed, whether I knew why or not, I guess. And then now it's just, it's the place that, and it sounds so cliche, but it is the place where I feel the most kind of like alive and the most connected to myself. So then innately it will be the place where I connect best with others, I guess.
Yeah. The kind of theme of knowing thyself and self-discovery and being comfortable with oneself is one that's coming up a lot in like thematically in your music. And I'm wondering, when did you start feeling comfortable, or did you always feel comfortable putting yourself into your songs?
I think it was maybe like the opposite, that I felt so uncomfortable, but it was like the more uncomfortable you feel, the more that's what you got to do kind of thing. Like with like the attitude that I had growing up was like, even just personality wise, like feeling really self-conscious, like that would be my inward life. But then outwardly, I would just push it even further, I guess, to mask some of that insecurity. So I think then that just became kind of my mode of operating, is like, I've always maybe been a little bit of an oversharer in relationships or in like general life to like mask discomfort. But then it just kind of became who I am. And now it feels like that is who I am in a more comfortable way. I am like more comfortable with myself now. So then that kind of just becomes the way I communicate best. So it started maybe out as like, as you do when you're a kid, you just find your ways of coping with the world or how to be yourself, how to present yourself. And then it just kind of became who I was naturally. And then now I can't help it.
Do you feel like it's therapeutic now when you're writing songs?
For sure. And it also is like, I try to like write a song about this random person, and then it always ends up just coming back to me anyways. It's like, if I'm really just trying to connect and be like connected, or at least not necessarily like coming back to me, but coming back to something that I can relate to. It's like, I'm not necessarily like a story songwriter, like someone like a Bob Dylan or like a whatever who can just like write a song about someone else's story. It's like something which I totally respect, but it's just not the way that I write. It's usually like pretty connected to emotions I've lived or felt or can really like understand in a way.
Yeah, I feel like from the audience perspective, watching you perform, it's like, oh, she's like feeling this emotion right now and like experiencing the thing that, like, it's like we're like sitting in a coffee shop and you're crying to me in the world. I'm like, oh, this is embarrassing. You're crying in public. But
Yeah, you're like, shut up, but like cute. Glad you trust me, but please shut up.
I just mean that you have this like the stage presence and ability to like embody the lyrics and the words that you're saying, which I find, and I know everybody else finds really captivating.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like it's like something that is genuine. Like when I'm singing, even songs I've been singing for years, I feel like there's always a way that I can find to connect to those lyrics. It won't necessarily be the initial feeling that came when I was writing it, but there's always ways to connect. And then there's that fine balance too. It's like, I don't necessarily want to be the person on stage who's like weeping every time I sing the same song and then making people really like uncomfortable in a way that they're like, they can no longer engage with the music because I'm just like, it's like every once in a while, I'll shed a little tear if it's a special moment, but I really do try to keep it like my emotions are raw, but also in check to a degree.
Yeah.
So that the message can actually be like received, I feel.
Mm-hmm. And like, do you find it exhausting to like put out that much energy when you're touring? Do you have like a pretty packed, what are your tour schedules like? Is it kind of every day that you're going? Do you have it spaced out a bit?
Yeah, we go pretty hard when we go, a day off here and there. And then usually I'm just sleeping because it is exhausting. And it's exhausting just, I used to go out to the merch table after every show. And in my mind, I was like, I'm never not going to do this. And I was opening for Serena Ryder. And at one point she was like, you go out after every show? And I was like, yeah, you don't. And then she was like, one day, my friend, you may stop doing that. And not because like you don't love the people, but because it's just, I was finding myself earlier in my career, like losing my voice on tour or not understanding like just the regulation that I needed to, in order to have the stamina to complete a run. And part of that is like going out and talking to people. And I am a chatty fucking Kathy. I love to chat. So I have to me, it's like, I have to set pretty extreme boundaries on myself to like, I can't go out and talk in a bar after a show. I can't go to the merch table anymore, as much as it like pains me because I love those connections. But truly, I can't sing a whole tour if I do that. I don't do all the fun things. I'm like relatively boring on tour, depending. Like some festival runs, if we're just like flying in for a festival and flying out, then I feel like I can indulge a little bit more in like the hang aspect, the fun, like going to see stuff, going out for a dinner before a show. Like, but usually if we're on a run, like I'm sleeping a lot, just a lot of self-preservation so that I can actually like get on stage and do the shows to the ability that I want to.
Oh yeah, because the talking, and like maybe it's just like me and my elder years now, but I find that that's the part that gets me the most in any like music industry scenario is like the networking or chatting to folks over incredibly loud house music.
Totally. No, I can't do it. I can't do it. Like literally can't maintain my voice if I do that. And I love talking. So it's, to me, it's like an extreme. It's either like, I'm going out tonight and after the show and I'm going to talk with reckless abandon, or I'm in bed. There's not really a middle ground for me.
That's interesting. And then when you're off of the road, what's your kind of day to day like? Do you have like set times that you are like feeling creative and kind of working on your craft? Or is it more kind of organic and when you're feeling like it, you put in some time?
Yeah, there's kind of no typical day these days. It's like there's lots of just like emailing in a day. A lot of just like the maintenance, like the business side maintenance. I have a great team that's like on the birthday cake end of things, like my management and label and stuff, and they're just slowly building their infrastructure too. So it's like, but they're still, regardless of, and I think that's something that maybe I didn't understand at the beginning, is like the more successful you get or the more you take on, your emailing doesn't stop. Like you're emailing more. Like it's like you're, even if you have like a team of people, there's so much work to be done on the back end, which I love the business end of making a to-do list and checking it off, but the creative time does sometimes get sacrificed as a result. And I really need to be intentional with when I'm creative. Like I'm going to LA for like 10 days to work with Deadmen, like the Matt Schellenberg and Matt Peters, because they live out there now, my producing duo kind of partners that I work on a lot of my music with. And I'm setting aside like 10 days to be like, okay, this is creative time, because it's not something that's easy for me now to just pepper into my everyday life, because of like when I'm home from tour, I'm emailing and getting shit ready for the next thing, and I'm sleeping. So it's like there's a lot of like maintenance on that end as well. And so that's hard when you're in like a busy touring schedule to find time to just like be prolific. Some people can do that, and that's great. I feel like I don't understand. Sometimes it'll be like if I'm doing like idle things, like in the shower, like putting the dishes away, like little sparks of creativity will come to me. But I do really have to be more intentional than I ever was before about like, okay, this week I am writing. I am not answering my emails. This is a writing week. And whatever comes out of that is great. There's no pressure to like make the album of my life, but at least I'm like setting aside that time to do that. So,
Well, I love that you mentioned that the emails don't stop, like just because you see more success. Because I feel like that is a goal that like so many artists have. It's like there's this kind of holy grail out there that like once I make it, once I have the team, once I'm like really balling, then then I just get to make art. And that's the goal, is just getting to.
yeah, then I don't have to work as hard
Yeah.
on the other stuff. But in fact, it gets more.
No.
It becomes more. The workload is heavier, but it's also exciting. And if you have a good team around you, like I have an amazing support system in my management and label, where it's like, if I can't do something, like they're not sitting there being like, if you don't get this to me, like you're fired. It's like, if there's something that I simply cannot do because I'm too tired, I just say mental health day, and then no one asks any questions. It's like there's also boundaries there as well. Like it's hard work, and it's work that I do most of the time with pleasure, but every once in a while I hit that wall, and they're all very understanding of that, because you have to be.
Well, let's talk about setting that boundary, though, because that's something that might be something folks don't even know that they can do or feel maybe empowered to do. So was there something that led you to be able to just say, mental health day, I'm out?
I think just the level to which I was burning out without fully realizing it pre-pandemic. And I feel like this is a pretty relatable story across the board. I've heard a lot of musician friends talking about this, that like the pre-pandemic hustle, and I mean, the hustle is everywhere still. It's still around. But I mean, I think there was a big wake-up call to a lot of people of like, what is sustainable and what is not. And this industry, it's difficult as like an aging woman as well. I think it's difficult to be like, I need some time, because people are like, ooh, can't handle the heat, like whatever. It's just kind of like, no, like I could, but I don't want to die. Like I want to like do this sustainably. And there are times and seasons where maybe I'm going a bit harder than I feel like I would normally go. And there are times for that. And then there are times where like I set aside holiday time now, like vacation time. I try to like have a weekend. Like I try to not be on my email till 1 a.m. on a Saturday night. Like it's just different things. And that sounds like, wow, that's not much, but it's like that. Those are big boundaries for me. Like I definitely still struggle with just like turning it off, because the nature of the game is that you could potentially be doing something every minute of every day if you were on your hustle grind, especially with the way like the internet works and social media and all that stuff. It's like you can constantly be working on something if you want it to be, but
Absolutely.
there has to be a moment of recharge. And that's something, that only really became important to me within the last few years, just kind of seeing how, okay, I want to do this for the rest of my life. So then I have to do it in a more sustainable way, or else this is not something I can do the rest of my life.
Yeah, I don't think it's a small thing. I think that's, as you mentioned, like we're more connected to work stuff than ever before because we carry it around on our like watch. And then so many folks like have that kind of flexible schedule, or when you're working for yourself, and especially like as an artist or like running your own business, running your own management company as an agent, whatever it is. Like there's stuff bombarding you all the time. So being able to create that boundary, turn off your notifications, whatever you got to do.
Totally. And like looking at my emails, like a new thing in the last few years too, is like looking at an email at 6 p.m. on a Friday and being like, will anyone really care if I respond to this now or if I respond to it Monday morning? I don't think anyone will care. And just like taking off some of that pressure and understanding that like the value that my rest holds, the value that my peace holds, that enables me to like do better creatively when I take my peace and my rest seriously. It's still like, I sound so like, what a guru. No, like I'm still really bad at it. Like I haven't necessarily mastered this, but even the fact that I'm talking about it in this way is like a big step for me. I wouldn't have even been talking about it years ago like this.
I want to keep rolling with this theme because I feel like I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. And I've interviewed a lot of people on this podcast. So, but it's not something that's really come up all that much. So I'm really interested in your relationship with rest. And just like if there's anything that you do intentionally when you're taking that rest time, or even like if there's any rituals that you do like around sleep or anything like that kind of help you shut off everything else.
I should do more rituals around sleep. I'm the kind of person that's like, I adopt things and I'm like, wow, this is my forever thing. I guess my life has changed. And then I do it for like 2 months and then it's gone forever. And then I start like making declarations to like all my friends being like, oh my gosh, I found this new thing. It's called don't go on your phone when you're in bed before you fall asleep. And they're like, wow, you're so great. And I'm like, I know. And then like 2 months pass and then I'm like scrolling till 5 a.m. again. Like I'm so bad at just like consistent regulation, but I do have certain things that I do where I'm like, okay, today you are shutting off your brain. I love playing video games. I love really shitty reality TV. I mean, this is not necessarily what a guru would tell you is like the right thing to do for your brain, but like for me, it's great. And I say no to things a lot more than I ever did before. And it's such a joy to say no sometimes. Andrina Turen, who you know, a great friend of mine, once told me about JOMO, which is the opposite of FOMO, and it's the joy of missing out instead of the fear of missing out.
I love that.
And JOMO, I still have FOMO for a lot of things because there is a part of me that gets really recharged when I'm with people socially. But I just have a little nook in my couch. I have these blankets and I just get myself all wrapped in there and I'm like, this is joy. I am joyful to be here right now because when I'm on the road, it's like I'm not watching TV. We play some Mario Kart for sure. Like I bring the Switch on the road and the guys and I, we're ripping kart. Like it's our full-time job. And I think that's also a nice way for us to just like shut off the day and we don't got to talk about nothing serious. We're just like racing. We're racing bros. It's nice to just have certain things that you have to like plug into that have nothing to do with anything other than stupidity. And I love just turning my brain off and riffing on dumb shit and just like playing a video game. Like truly, it's like the extreme of like me with a pen and a pad talking about my feelings and really like unearthing past traumas and all that stuff. It's like there's that side of me and then there's the other side that's like goo goo gaga, like I just want to play a video game and drool. Like there's like
put me in a burrito
truly,
blanket. Yeah.
But also like I have a really nice porch. I just sit on my porch and I watch the birds. I try to do a lot of my emailing and stuff from my front porch as well. It's like just finding ways to like make the things that need to get done like a bit more zen, I guess.
Yeah, there's no visual portion of the podcast, so I'll just describe to our listeners that like behind you is a very tropical, serene painting. There's some fish, there's some coral, there's some seaweed flapping. very vibrant, colorful. You're very vibrant and colorful. I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about just like the aesthetic that as Begonia you're personifying. I certainly see it like on your stage show and in your music videos, or like there's just this like super rich vibrancy to the craft and to your artistry visually as well as sonically. I'm wondering if you have any comments on that kind of evolution, or how, like, was that just your general aesthetic vibe that you got to just release through this project, or was it something that was kind of more curated?
Well, it's like I always wanted to express myself openly with visuals and with just like fashion and stuff. That's something I've always been interested in. I've been in bands forever, and it's different when you're in bands. You're like talking to your bandmates, being like, okay, what are we wearing today? Like, what's the vibe? And I could express myself in the bands that I was in, but not necessarily to the degree that I can as a solo artist. And also I felt like I was still kind of discovering myself. And when I started this project, it felt like, okay, here we go. Let's wear all the wacky shit. And then I remember the very first video I did. It was like a live video in a church. And it was the first video that I ever put out there as like, here's me as Begonia. And I had all of these like coats and sequins and everything like on the sideline. And then I got too freaked out of like standing out that I ended up wearing all black, which is like not something I would ever do now unless it was like very intentional, like gothic energy. But it was just like, I looked like a conservative headmistress or something like that, of like just wearing all black. It just was very like not me now, but I see that. And I think I was just so scared to like launch to fulfill those things. But I had all the stuff even at the shoot, literally outside of the frame, were all these like patterns and sequins. And then I was just like, I'm too scared. Like I wasn't quite ready to like jump off the ledge. And then the more that I played live, the more that I would get encouraged by stepping out, the more I was like, okay, this is part of the expression. This is part of experimenting with fashion, experimenting with makeup is like part of what allows me to be the full version of who I want to be. So then it was like one didn't really come without the other in a sense. I mean, if I'm like in a studio session and I'm writing music, I'm not usually like done to the nines, but it's still like part of the process of like putting the music out there, the stage show. I have so much fun with visuals, so much fun with fashion and makeup, and it's all just kind of like whatever I'm feeling in that moment is what it is. Mostly with the live stuff, it's just kind of like, I don't know what this is going to be. I do my makeup and I go out there and I see a photo and I'm like, what the fuck were you thinking? I don't know. It's just what I wanted to do in that moment. But with the visuals, it's a little more thought out. Generally speaking, it's like the music always comes first. And then when I'm thinking about like album campaign stuff and like music videos, it's like, okay, we put some thought into it. And I definitely have like my partner, Seth Woodyard, who like builds all the sets and for what I do. And we often like will collaborate on figuring out like, what is the color scheme for this? Or like, what does this feel like or whatever? So it's definitely, there's more minds than just mine usually when it comes to the visual stuff. And there's so many fun people in Winnipeg to collaborate with, like my hairstylist, Kitty, my makeup artist, Rachel. Like we're always talking about styling and visual stuff. And like, to me, it's just such a fun way to kind of enhance the music. And it's just so fun for me to indulge in that stuff. I love making videos. I love photo shoots. I love just indulging in all of those visual aspects. It's really fun for me.
Oh, that's neat. Do you draw inspiration from any sources in that sense?
Yeah, depending on the era that I'm in, I guess, or like depending on where it's like at different times, different things. I feel like for fashion and stuff, I really love like just tacky, flashy, like toddlers and tiaras kind of shit, like Cher, Dolly Parton, like just very like out there, flamboyant. Derive a lot of like fun from like drag and like just really like kind of taking something that I like and then bumping it to the nth degree, like then going as far as I can kind of with it and seeing what that's like. And visually, it all depends on kind of who I'm working with. Like I've worked with different directors who have kind of different eyes, like different ways of using the camera, different aesthetics and stuff. And so it's kind of like, I usually try to just gather a team of people that I trust their artistry. And then it's like, okay, I want to empower you to do what you think based on what I've done. And it's just, I love just creative collaboration. Like, obviously I do love being like a producer and being like, we're doing this and this. And but like the whole point of bringing people together is that I trust you to do what you do. So let's see how that comes together in like a melting pot of art.
Pot of art. Yes, please. In talking about collaboration, I wanted to bring up Deadmen, who are your longtime collaborators. Tell us a little bit about what that relationship is like.
Yeah, they're my brothers from other mothers. I know them for a really long time through the Winnipeg music scene. Matt Schellenberg and I go probably the furthest back. He used to come to like some of my bar shows, like when I was playing back in the day, because I feel like he knew Joey Landreth and Meg Dolovich, who were in like one of my first bar bands, and he would come, and then that's kind of how we connected. But then we realized that like by virtue of our Mennonite last names that we knew so many people in common, because Winnipeg, like in Manitoba, is small like that. And if you have a Mennonite last name, you know like every random person that's ever breathed air near you. You're like, oh, then maybe that's my cousin. Like, and so we knew a lot of the same people. And then Matt Schellenberg was kind of doing his own musical project, hired me to come play the glockenspiel because that was all the rage in like
the glockenspiel had
like
a time.
2007. The glockenspiel had a big time moment in like the indie music world. So I played the glockenspiel and sang some backups for him. And then we started kind of creating music on the sidelines of all my other projects. Him and I would come back together and had a couple side projects. And it was always just kind of for fun because I was very like devoted and loyal to my band life. And that was something that I took very seriously. So it's like, yeah, we'd be making music on the side, but like I'm not releasing it seriously. And then when the band that I was in for like 8 years dissolved, he was kind of there being like, hey, you want to make some music? And within that same period of time, while I was in a band, Matt Schellenberg and Matt Peters were in Royal Canoe together. And that was kind of developing in tandem as like I was actively touring with Shit Get Me in the band that I was in. So we'd see them at different festivals or like interact with them. I always kind of felt like they were the cool kids. And I was kind of like, hey, you guys think I'm cool? Like, felt like a little bit of like an outsider to the cool kid party for a while. But then we like actually became friends. And I was like, oh, they're just fucking nerds. And no one's cooler than anyone else. And everyone thinks everyone else is cooler than them. And like, no one cares. Like, they're just nerds. And they just championed me so early. Like, they'd have me singing on their Royal Canoe records and like coming out to do like features at their shows, and just really were like a huge champion of mine from super early on. So yeah, then when I decided to start going solo, Matt Schellenberg and Matt Peters were some of the biggest kind of proponents of like, you got to do this, come to the studio, let's make some music, because it was a nerve-wracking thing after being in bands for however long. At 27, thinking that I knew kind of the trajectory of my life, starting this solo project and being like, I know how to make my own decisions, but do I? Like, do I trust my instincts? Like, what is my musical voice? Like, I was in so many different cover bands throughout the years, and there were so many different genres that I dipped my toe in. I was like, what is my voice? And so they really helped me kind of develop that and created an amazing like playground for me to figure that out, to play around in musically and figure that out. So we made Lady in Mine together, my first EP, on a shoestring budget, as they say. And we just were in the studio in private ear, like all night, trying to really max out the studio time so we didn't have to get an extra day. And like, it was just like whatever songs we had or the songs we laid down. And then from there, it just that vulnerability and bond really developed from that first EP to Powder Blue, the last album I put out, where I feel like I just implicitly trust them and can be vulnerable with them, be in the studio with them, and also be like, I hate this idea. Having the comfort to tell people you hate an idea actually is like a real privilege, because you can be like, that idea is trash. And you know that they're still going to be like, okay, and love you, and you're still friends. Like, that takes like a level of like comfortability for me, at least, to be able to tell someone I don't like something is like, there's more of a trust developed there. So
Yeah, that's like the treasured relationships in like groups or like any sort of artistic or like industry business side too, is like, if I can tell you I don't like something, it means like I love you.
yeah, it means that I implicitly trust you, that you're not going to leave me, that I'm going to be like, this is trash. And you're not going to be like, well, I hate you and I'm over this shit. It's like, no, we can be really respectfully in awe of each other's talents and then also disagree. And it's great.
You know, you're talking a bit about the transition of being in like bands to being solo artiste. Are you the musical director of your ensemble? Is that something that like, are Deadmen still involved with your live show? What's now like who's in your musical entourage?
Yeah, sometimes like they from afar will break down some of the studio sessions to provide samples to the band that I have now so that we can trigger samples. Like we don't play to tracks, but we definitely have a lot of like heavy samples that are triggered by Graham Lever, who's my keyboard player now, who basically has like a space station around him and just triggering different samples. Because I like for things to sound as close to the record as possible, but also I don't like for things to be too on the grid, robotic. Like I like there to be a bit of push and pull so that you can feel that human element to like what we're doing. And Michael, my drummer now, having been in Royal Canoe for the longest time, really understands how the mats kind of work in terms of like organizing their samples too. So like he also, like all of us, John, the bass player, is such an amazing technician and has such a great ear for like little additions to the songs that I wouldn't have thought of that kind of just create this richer tapestry. So it's sure, I guess, de facto, I'm the musical director, but we all kind of like chime in with our various parts. I'm not a person who loves rehearsing, for better or for worse. I really like to be like, hey, everyone listen to these songs, empower yourself. I don't like rehearsal to be a place where we're like fiddling around learning a part. I like to know the part, go to rehearsal and tighten it up. And these guys that I have now are just so good at that. They just are so proficient and so amazingly talented. And I've been blessed to have such great bands throughout the years. And now I'm just so excited with the people that I have now. Just feels like the progression of where the music is going, and they are really invested. And so it feels like, as much as like I'm a solo artist and I'm the only person in the pictures, it's like I have so many people kind of behind the music, like making it happen, and that are so invested in the project that I could like, you can't like pay people enough to be that nice to you and that good and that like genuinely invested. And like, so I feel very lucky to have the team that I have.
So can you tell us a little bit now about what you have, like what's on the horizon? What are you excited about? What's coming up for you?
So there is a tour of the East Coast,
Woo!
Canada, in the fall. I have never toured the East Coast, Canada. I feel like for a long time I've had people in the comment section be like, come to the East Coast. And now I'm like, oh, I'm coming.
I'm doing it.
So starting September 20th in Moncton, and then we go to Charlottetown, Halifax, Fredericton, Quebec City, Witch Prophet's opening.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be great. I'm really excited, and I'm excited to have like a nice string of dates there too. I feel like also touring in the fall is so romantic.
It's going to be beautiful.
I love it. I feel like it will be a beautiful drive.
And then is the East Coast tour in support of the EP that's coming out, or tell us a little bit about the new EP.
The EP just came out July 17th, and it's called Open Swim. It's a 3-song EP, and yeah, it's kind of like, the record was out. I had these songs. I really wanted to connect them somehow, but I didn't necessarily want them to come out as just like a B-side of the record. I wanted them to have their own moment in the sun. So we decided to put them out as an EP, and it's kind of like a fun release. Like it's not one that I'm sitting there like biting my nails being like every night before I go to bed being like, people better listen to this. It's like, it feels like less pressure than an album release, but it definitely is something that I hope people listen to and love. And yeah, and so definitely we'll be playing some of the songs live, and that's what we're kind of building them up for the East Coast fall tour.
And folks can like follow you on their streaming, on all the streaming sites, and probably get that EP sent straight to their phone, watch, and
come on,
digital implant.
Send the EP to your phone.
Yes.
Get it all digital stuff.
For all those folks that are definitely now running out of their house to buy tickets, should they run back inside and open their computer and find an easy and convenient way to interact with you?
Yeah, get your energy out, like run around the block a couple times. You're so tired. You really want to spend money. You got to open your computer and go to hellobegonia.com. You know how to spell hello, don't you? I don't know how to spell it, apparently.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. HELLOBEGONIA.com/tour. And then all the tickets are there.
And what about like, are you on the social media? And it's like, do you have like an email list? What do you do?
I am all over. I'll tell you that my socials are Hello Begonia. So you can look it up. We got that TikTok-y. We got the Instagram. Those are the ones that I'm the most active on, but like Facebook and stuff as well. I have it, but it's Hello Begonia. Look it up. Begonia, look her up. Open Swimmy P, put it on your phone.
Come on by.
Do it.
Begonia, it was such a pleasure to chat with you today, and wishing you the very best. I can't wait to download digitally that EP into my brain chip, and yeah, I wish you all the best out on the road, and hope we get to chat again soon.
Thank you. Nice to chat with you too. Appreciate it.
That's all for this episode, friends. The ReFolKus podcast is brought to you by Folk Music Ontario. Find out more by heading to folkmusicontario.org/ReFolKus. That's ReFolKus. The podcast is produced by Kayla Nizon and Rosalind Dennett and mixed by Jordan Moore at the Pod Cabin. The opening theme is by King Cardiac and the artwork is by Jamie Card. Please give us a download, a like, subscribe, rate, and review to let us know you're listening. Until next time, keep it folk and have fun.